Here we go. There's Dad. There's your remote. There's Mom's water. You've got your phone. Plug in your tablet. And Mommy actually has to go and get chapstick because her OCD will not let her read without chapstick. Because Mommy's got the crazies. Because I need chapstick, right? Alright, there. Now that I've got far too much chapstick on, now Mama can read. She's about half of it on her water bottle. Okay, so we didn't read last night. I thought he fell asleep early, and then an hour later, he was awake and clapping, but we already captured the live stream, so I didn't think it was wise to flip-flop, and I'd already canceled it. Although right now I don't have a lot of people watching live, so I don't know why I was so panicked over it. Anyway, that's my own little craziness. Okay, you ready, Mr. Oreo Lips? Maybe I should have brought the chapstick in for you. I just got a stupid cough. Alright, so last we saw, David was being hunted by Saul, and he could have killed Saul, but he didn't, right? You remember that? Okay. So now we're at David's dilemma from 1 Samuel 26:6 to 28:2. King Saul and his army are camped in the valley, preparing to attack David. But David is warned, and in the dark of night, he and his young nephew, Abishai, steal past the sleeping guards in search of the king. One false move and the whole camp will be aroused. Stealthily, they creep up beside the sleeping king. God has put your enemy in our hands. I'll pin him to the ground with one blow. No, the Lord anointed Saul king of Israel, and the Lord will decide when and how Saul is to die. Hand me his spear and water jug. Then we'll leave the same way we came into camp. The next morning, David calls down to Saul's camp. King Saul, look, I have your spear and water jug. You took them while I slept. Again, you could have killed me, and you didn't. I have been a fool. I'll never try to harm you again. Ashamed, King Saul orders his men to break camp and return home. Look, they're leaving. You're safe. No, Saul promised that before. I'll never be safe as long as the king lives. And I'm tired of being hunted like an outlaw. I'm going back to the land of the Philistines. Philistines? But Uncle David, they're enemies of Israel. They'll kill you on sight. David reasons that the Philistines know of his trouble with Saul, and at this time they will accept him. And he is right. You're all crazy. I like it. King Achish? Maybe? Achish. Achish? I don't know. I have trouble saying English names. The Philistines is glad to have David's 600 warriors on his side. Well, yeah. He even gives them the city of Ziklag to live in. Sound like they're making up names. It just sounds like names from like an MMO. So for the first time since they joined David, his followers have a settled place in which to live. It's good, Abigail, to see my men raising their families in peace. And I'm so glad your life is no longer in danger. One day, David sees King Achish riding into the city. I wonder what brings him here. I pray his visit is a friendly one. David goes out to welcome the king. Greetings, David. We are planning an attack on your old enemy, King Saul. We expect you to help us. How can I fight my own people? King Saul and Prince Jonathan will be leading the Israelites. At the witch's house, from 1 Samuel 29 and chapter 28, verses 5 through 11. David is on the spot. King Achish has ordered him to join the attack on King Saul and his own people. If he refuses, the Philistines will turn on him. So, against his will, he joins the march against Israel. Oh God, help me so that I will not have to fight Saul and Jonathan. Crazy boy. Unknown to David, some of the Philistine leaders are hoping to keep him out of the fight for another reason. That night, they go to King Achish's tent. I don't like having David and his men bringing up the rear. Remember, David is an Israelite, and he could cut us to pieces while we're busy at the front. I think David is loyal to me, but if you wish, I'll send him home. Achish calls for David. I find no fault in you, David, but the others don't trust you. You'd better return home as soon as it is light. David's prayers have been answered. At dawn, he leads his soldiers out of the camp and back toward the city of Ziklag. Philistines march off. When Saul sees the powerful Philistine army, he is afraid. Frantically, he calls upon God for help, but God does not answer. Terrified, he calls for a servant. Where can I find a woman who speaks with the spirits of the dead? I need some advice. There's a witch in Endor. It's near the Philistine camp, so we'll have to go by night. That night, Saul and two servants steal across the hill to the village of Endor and knock on a door. I'll pay you well to call up the spirit of the one-eyed man. Is this a trap? You know King Saul has ordered all witches put to death. Have no fear. Nothing will happen to you for what I ask. Whose spirit do you want to call up? A voice from the dead. From 1 Samuel chapter 28, verses 11 through 25, and chapter 31, verses 1 through 6, and chapter 30, verses 1 through 3. Saul is terrified by the sight of the approaching Philistine army. In desperation, he disguises himself and steals through the night to seek the advice of a witch. Call up the spirit of the prophet Samuel. For a moment, all is still. The woman calls for the spirit of Samuel. Suddenly, she cries out in terror. You are King Saul. Don't kill me. Have no fear. No harm will come to you. Tell me, what did you see? An old man, covered with a mantle. It is the prophet Samuel. Then Saul hears the voice of Samuel. Because you disobeyed God, the Lord will deliver Israel into the hands of the Philistines. Tomorrow you and your sons will be dead. The next morning, the Philistines attack Israel. Under a weak and frightened king, retreats in panic. The enemy is everywhere. We can't stop them. My sons, where are they? Dead, sir. Dead, and I am badly wounded. Draw your sword and kill me. I'd rather die by your hand than be captured by the Philistines. Kill my king? I can't. So Saul draws his own sword and falls upon it. When the people of Israel learn that their king is dead and the army has fled, they desert their cities, leaving them to the conquering Philistines. Samuel's prophecy comes true. Meanwhile, David and his men ride towards Ziklag. Look, what's that red glow against the sky? On the robber's trail. From 1 Samuel 30, verses 1 through 11. David and his men returned to find their city of Ziklag in smoldering ruins. In vain they searched through rubble and asked for their families. Frontline news. from 1 Samuel 30 and 2 Samuel 1, verses 1 through 3. David and his followers are on the trail of the robbers who sacked their city and carried their women and children off into slavery. On the way, they find a man lying beside the road. He's sick and starving. Give him food and water. As soon as he is able to talk, we'll question him. Who are you? And why were you left here sick and without food and water? I am a slave with the Amalekites when they burned Ziklag. But when I became sick, my master left me here to die. That was 3 days ago. So is that Amalekites who raided Ziklag? Do you know where they are now? I'll take you to their camp if you promise not to turn me over to my master. He'd kill me. David promises, and true to his word, the slave guides David to the Amalekite camp, where the soldiers are celebrating their victory. We'll soon end that party. David makes a lightning attack. The Amalekites rally their forces, but they are no match for courageous men fighting for their wives and children. When the battle is over, oh, David, I knew you would come. Thank God, Abigail, you are safe. The Amalekite who left his slave to die paid dearly for his cruelty, for by this act he and most of his countrymen lost their lives. But David, who obeyed God, rescues all of the Israelite women and children. And when he divides the spoils of battle, he shares it not only with his men, but with leaders of the towns of Judah. Triumphantly, David and his men bring their families and possessions back to the burned city. They talk eagerly of how they will rebuild their homes and once again live in peace. But David's thoughts are far away. You looked worried, David. Yes, I keep wondering how the battle between the Philistines and King Saul came out. 2 days later, who are you and what do you want? I was with Saul in the battle of the Philistines, and I have good news for David. Rival kings. From 2 Samuel 1, verse 2 through chapter 2, verse 9. The books of 2 Samuel and 1 Chronicles record the same period of history, the reign of David, Israel's greatest king. 2 Samuel presents it through the eyes of the prophets, while 1 Chronicle relates it from the viewpoint of the priests. Soon after David and his men return to Ziklag, a messenger comes with news for David. Who are you, and what brings you here? I come from the battle between the Philistines and Israel. Your old enemy, King Saul, is dead. So is Crown Prince Jonathan. How do you know this? I do not know how Jonathan died, but I found the king on the battlefield. He was injured, and he asked me to kill him. I did, and here are his crown and bracelets to prove it. David does not know that the man is telling a lie, and with the hope of receiving a reward, for a moment he is lost in grief, and he turns in anger upon the man who brought the news. Even if the king asked you to kill him, you had no right to take the life of a man chosen by God to be the king of Israel. For this crime you will pay with your life. Then, before all his faithful followers, David sings a memorial song for Jonathan and the king. Song of the Bow. How were the mighty fallen? The bow of Jonathan turned not back, and the sword of Saul returned not empty. In their death they were not divided. Oh boy, what is going on the computer here? Here, let's close these windows before. Okay. Okay, that was weird. Just random pop-ups just decided to show up. Okay, let's see. And the sword of Saul returned not empty. In their death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. I am distressed for thee, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant hast thou been unto me. Thy love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women. How are the mighty fallen, and the weapons of war perished? Now that Saul is dead, David knows that he can return to his homeland. But before he makes any plans, he prays to God. Lord, shall I return now to my own people in Judah? God tells David to return, and when he does, the people of Judah welcome their hero and make him king of their tribe. God bless King David. Long live the king. But David's troubles are not over, for across the Jordan River, Saul's youngest son, Ishbosheth, maybe, has been crowned king of the other tribes of Israel. Treachery and revenge. From 2 Samuel, from chapter 2, verse 12 to 3, verse 25. After King Saul's death, David is made king of his own tribe of Judea. But across the Jordan River, King Saul's son, Ishbosheth, rules the other tribes of Israel. He is fearful and weak, but his general Abner has plans for Israel. But David is powerful. He has many loyal men. That's why we must wipe him out now. If we wait, he will be strong enough to take your kingdom from you. Abner wins his point, but after a fierce battle, Abner's troops are driven back. In the pursuit, David's young nephew, Ashel, centers his attack on Abner. Go back. I know your brother Joab. I don't want to kill you. Leave my brother out of this. This is between you and me. Against his will, Abner is forced to defend himself, and Ashel is killed. When, how do you say that wrong? It's gotta be Job, right? Job, maybe. Learns of Ashel's death. He is torn with grief and anger. I'll get revenge. The war continues between the two kingdoms, but with each battle, David grows stronger. And in Ishbosheth's palace, fear and tension mount until one day Abner turns on the king. How dare you question me? For that I will transfer my allegiance to David, and your kingdom with it. Abner carries out his threat and offers to help David aid the rest of Israel to his kingdom, or add the rest of Israel to his kingdom. David replies with an invitation to a feast. Thank you for your kindness. I'll join forces with you. You, my lord, will soon reign over all Israel. Abner is scarcely out of the city when Joab returns. Abner just left. David had a big feast for him. Abner? Here? And David let him go? Angrily, Joab rushes to see David. Don't you know that Abner came here as a spy to find out your strength? David refuses to listen, and in a rage, Joab storms out. I'll handle this my way. Joab is furious. This could mean trouble. He won't dare defy the king. Plot against the king. 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 26 through chapter 4, verse 5. Joab is angry because King David has honored Abner, the general of the enemy king. Secretly, Joab invites Abner to see him. Here comes Abner, the man who killed my brother. He must be willing to betray his own king to win favor and power with David, more power than I would have. When Abner enters the city, welcome, Abner. I have an important matter to take up with you. Will you step over here where we can take it up quietly? Greetings, Joab. Of course. Joab leads Abner to a quiet corner of the busy gate, and there, before Abner can suspect what is going on, Joab stabs him. David is angry when he learns of Abner's murder. He calls the people together and accuses Joab. Punishment of Joab is in the hands of God. To further show his disapproval for what Joab has done, David leads the mourners in Abner's funeral procession. But even as king, David is not secure enough in his new kingdom to punish Joab, for Joab is leader of David's army. David mourns the death of Abner, but Abner's master, King Ishbosheth, is shaken with fright. Bad news, without Abner, I'm lost. King Ishbosheth's fears are well grounded, for even as he receives the news of Abner's death, two of his own army officers are plotting. Abner, King Ishbosheth, is a weakling. If David attacks us, we'll be wiped out. I have an idea that could give us power and a reward. Listen, just two of us. Wonderful. Let's do it now while it's dark. No, it will be easier if we just walk into the palace in broad daylight, as if we were getting grain when then no one would suspect. At noon the next day, while the king is taking a nap, the reward will be ours soon. And I think that's a good place to stop. Well, we'll read one more section. Hail to the King. From 2 Samuel chapter 4, verse 6 to chapter 5, verse 4. The war against King David leaves King Ishbosheth with few loyal followers. In broad daylight, two of his own officers enter the king's palace. The king's room is down this hall. He is asleep. Good. We must act swiftly. Boldly, the men enter the king's bedroom. While the palace is resting during the heat of the day, they kill him. Then, quietly, so that no one will suspect their errand, they walk out of the palace and into the street. Night finds them traveling down the plains toward David's capital in Hebron. Before David, they proudly tell their story. We bring good news, O king. We have killed your enemy, King Ishbosh. We thought some reward. Reward? Do you think I will reward you for killing an innocent man? There's no room in my kingdom for traitors who betray their king. Guards, take them away. Execute them. After King Ishbosheth's death, leaders of the tribes of Israel meet to plan their future. It was David who was anointed by Samuel to be king. It was David who led King Saul's armies to victory. Now it is David. It is David. We all want to be our king. So David, at the age of 37, is crowned king of all of Israel. Hail, King David, king of Israel. Praise God. As king of all Israel, David loses no time in preparing to defend his new kingdom. Our first job is to take Jerusalem and make it our capital. It lies between Israel and Judea, so both parts of the kingdom will accept it. Jerusalem? It's one of the best fortified cities in the whole country. And that's a good place to stop. All right. And my bookmark. Oh, there it is. There's that picture of that sweet little boy. Now he's got sassies. All right. Well, that's good for tonight. Right, buddy? All right. Time for bed, sweet boy. Let's go. Oh, my foot's asleep. Oh, my foot. All right, that's going to be fun. Good night, everyone. We will see you tomorrow.